The scream cracked through the quiet of the Whitmore mansion. "Sir, this boy lived with me at the orphanage." Grace, the new housekeeper, stood trembling before a large portrait on the main wall. The hallway smelled of polished wood and old days. Arthur Whitmore, master of the house, turned slowly, startled by the interruption. The painting showed a calm-eyed boy with light hair and a gentle mouth. The gold frame caught the late afternoon light slipping through linen drapes. Arthur felt the floor tilt beneath him. It was the face of his missing brother, Luke, taken at age 4. Grace covered her mouth, eyes filling. "I knew him as Daniel. He never talked about family. We grew up together at St. Vincent Home." Arthur said nothing. The words rang like a voice from the past. The portrait he'd had restored weeks earlier now felt like a door, still open. "Are you sure?" His voice came out raw. "I am, sir. I'd know him anywhere. He called me Gracie." Her hands shook, as if each memory brought a chill. Arthur stepped closer. For the first time in years, his heartbeat stumbled. Hope and fear tangled in one sound. For decades, he had tried to scrub away that pain. Luke's disappearance had shattered their family. His mother faded of sadness. His father drowned in work until his body gave out. Arthur grew up quiet, inheriting fortunes and empty rooms. But now, because of this soft-spoken woman, the past pushed back to the surface. "He used to say he was taken from a rich family," Grace whispered, "with a big piano and an older brother. Nobody believed him. They said kids make things up." Arthur lifted a hand toward the portrait. The child's eyes seemed alive, watching him. Fragments returned. Luke's laugh as he ran through the garden, his mother playing Chopin at dusk, the warm smell of cornbread on Sundays. All of it buried under the weight of success. "My God," he breathed. "If what you're saying is true, he survived. He was so close." Grace drew a steadying breath. "He ran away at 14. We never heard from him again." Arthur stared at the windows reflecting a pale version of himself. Fear on one side, an old flame on the other. The promise he'd made at 8 years old. "I'll bring my brother home." That night, Arthur went alone to the music room. His mother's piano still waited beneath a white dust cover. He pulled it back with his bare hands and pressed a trembling key. The note rolled through the empty hall like a call. Grace appeared at the door. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I need to know. Is the boy in the portrait really your brother?" Arthur nodded. "Yes, and if you're telling the truth, Grace, I have to find what's left of him." Outside, wind moved as if time itself were reversing. Grace wiped her tears. "I can help you. I remember details, names, faces, the drawings he made. Maybe that leads somewhere." Arthur looked at her, gratitude crossing grief. "Then we start tomorrow." That night, the mansion seemed to breathe. Moonlight glazed the boy's face in the frame, and for a moment, Arthur swore a faint smile lifted there, as if the lost child had heard the call and answered. Morning came cold and heavy, the sky carrying the same weight Arthur felt in his chest. He crossed the dew-dark lawn to find Grace waiting by the gate, wearing an old coat and clutching the yellow cleaning gloves she never left in her apron, like a small cord tied to the past. On Arthur's wrist, a worn leather band, his mother's gift. 2 simple talismans, holding what life had tried to erase. They drove in silence toward the old St. Vincent home, following narrow roads under leafless trees. With every turn, Grace seemed to fold inward, traveling back in time. When the iron gate came into view, rusted and whining in the wind, Arthur's heart lurched. The place was in ruins, peeling walls, a yard choked with dry leaves, a crooked swing creaking with every breath of air. It looked exactly like a lost childhood. An elderly nun met them at the doorway, leaning on a cane. Fine-boned, steady-eyed, the face of someone who had learned to live with ghosts. "I'm Sister Madeline," she said before Arthur could speak. When he showed her the portrait, color left her cheeks. "Little Daniel," she whispered. Grace nodded, tears bright. "I knew him here. He called me Gracie." The sister led them into a close room lined with boxes and old records. Paper's dry scent mingled with candle wax. "He arrived with a woman who claimed to be a social worker," she said. There were forms, stamps, a birth certificate. Everything looked correct. Arthur asked to see the file. He lifted a yellowed folder like a relic. The documents were pristine, yet something was wrong. The stamps shared the same hand, the same ink tone, as if pressed on a single day. "These papers are fake," he said quietly. Sister Madeline sighed. In those years, there were so many children, so many tangled stories. Perhaps no one checked closely. Grace drifted to a stack of children's drawings, lids dusty and warped, houses in bright crayon, round-headed figures, blue clouds. Then she froze, breath caught. "Arthur, come see." In the center of the page, a big house, a piano, and two boys holding hands. In the corner, shaky letters read, "I am Luke Whitmore. One day my brother will find me." Arthur touched the paper, eyes wet. The world stopped. The drawing bridged past to present, living proof his brother had been here. He never stopped believing, Grace whispered. The sister dabbed her eyes, saying she had kept it because it felt too true to be pretend. Arthur photographed everything and asked for the woman's name. "Teresa Villar," the sister said at last. Well-mannered, cold eyes, came only once. Grace remembered a tight hug on Daniel's first night, how he cried quietly for a piano and the brother who'd promised to come. Arthur shut his eyes. For a moment, the far-off sound of piano keys filled the room. Outside, the wind rose. Arthur called an old friend, a private investigator. "Search every hospital and registry for Teresa Villar," he said. "Start with New England." The friend promised to dig. Grace asked to stop by a nearby community library where many St. Vincent kids spent their afternoons. The librarian, white hair and a voice like warm linen, remembered Daniel immediately. He drew pianos in the margins of old newspapers, said each note was a memory. She found an old scrapbook. Tucked inside was a clipping about an NGO probe into illegal adoptions. Faded at the bottom, initials TV. Arthur felt the click. Teresa Villar. Hours later, the phone rang. "Found something," the investigator said. "Teresa worked as a nurse at private hospitals until the late 90s, then vanished. But there's a record from 2012, Hartford County Hospital. An unidentified man admitted as Daniel Luke, partial amnesia." The friend paused. "And get this, he drew all the time." Arthur and Grace left the same day. Hartford greeted them with a thin rain and weak light. In the old hospital, green walls, stuck windows, a gentle-voiced physician remembered the patient. Quiet, polite, an exceptional hand. He sketched children, always with a piano behind them. He opened a drawer and slid out a worn folder. Inside, a charcoal drawing of two boys hand in hand at a piano. Grace pressed a hand to her mouth. "It's the same drawing. It's Luke." Arthur trembled. "What happened to him?" "He stayed a few months," the doctor said softly. Said he needed to visit an old orphanage called St. Vincent. After that, he never returned. The words hung heavy. Time circled back to the beginning. Luke had returned to where he grew up, but no one was waiting. Grace wiped tears. Arthur gripped the wall. Fate, unapologetic, had stitched every thread, tight. Outside, rain thickened against the glass like a metronome. Arthur met Grace's eyes and saw his own fear mirrored there. What if they were too late? Still, a quiet certainty remained. If his brother had found the way once, he could be found again. As they reached the car, Arthur's phone buzzed. A new message from the investigator. Recent listing, street artist signing as Luke Whitmore. Saturday craft fair, small Hudson Valley town, dropping pin. Arthur showed Grace. She stared at the rain silvering the asphalt. If it's him, he may not remember. Arthur drew a breath. Then we'll remind him who we've always been. The city seemed to sleep, but somewhere between thunder and headlights, a new destination formed. Along with the old promise, I'll bring my brother home. The road curled through fog-draped hills, the engine's hum syncing with Arthur's pulse. He and Grace headed toward a small Hudson Valley town where everyone knew everyone else. In the passenger seat, Grace kept her hands clasped over her coat pocket, feeling the shape of her yellow gloves. Silence wasn't awkward. It was reverent, as if both understood they were crossing the border between memory and miracle. By the time they reached town, the sun was prying open the clouds. The craft fair buzzed with voices, laughter, and the smell of fresh coffee. Between wooden stalls, brushes, and canvases, Arthur stopped short. There he was, a man with a short beard and simple clothes, focused on a portrait of a little girl. His movements were delicate, almost musical. On the canvas dropcloth, a signature, Luke Whitmore. Grace stepped first, legs unsteady, breath thin. "Daniel?" she said, voice small, almost childlike. The man looked up and time stilled. His eyes carried a familiar innocence, braided with confusion and surprise. "I know you," he murmured. "The orphanage. Grace." She cried before she could answer. Arthur came closer, heart thundering. "Luke," he said, the name breaking. The man blinked, as if trying to catch what he'd heard. "Luke?" Arthur pulled a folded page from his pocket, the drawing from the hospital. "You made this. It was your way to remember us." Tears pooled fast. The artist touched the paper with shaking fingers. "I dreamed of that house, a piano, and someone who promised he'd find me." Arthur smiled through tears. "I never stopped." People gathered without understanding, watching two grown men hold each other and cry while a woman stood nearby, face washed clean with joy. Grace touched Luke's shoulder, tender. "I told you he'd come, remember?" "I waited," Luke sobbed, "even when I didn't know what for." The reunion was simple and sacred, a prayer without words. Time, cruel for so long, seemed to apologize at last. Still unsure, Luke accepted Arthur's invitation to stay a few days at the mansion. Grace traveled with them, careful that each memory be woken gently. At first, Luke moved through the house like someone visiting a dream. He touched furniture, studied photographs, ran his hand along the piano's closed lid. Sometimes sounds startled him, scents, light falling a certain way. Memories surfaced in flashes. A laugh, a melody, their mother's face. Arthur watched from a distance, never pushing. He knew the return of a soul to itself takes time. One rainy night, Luke asked to sit at the piano. Arthur lifted the cover slowly and helped with the lid. The keys, yellowed with years, still held the same sweet timbre. Luke pressed one note, then another. The sound filled the house as if the past exhaled. Arthur sat beside him and completed the phrase. Chopin, the very piece their mother played on winter nights. When the last note faded, Luke rested his head on Arthur's shoulder. "I thought you'd forgotten me." "Never," Arthur said, voice unsteady. "I searched my whole life." Grace watched from the doorway, eyes glassy. That delicate sound was more than music. It was medicine. It was the echo of a promise kept. Doctors confirmed what their hearts already knew. Luke lived with memory blocks and deep, old wounds, from the chaos of his childhood and an accident that nearly took his life. Yet hope was real. He began to draw again. The garden, the piano, their mother smiling. Each canvas returned a missing shard. One afternoon, Arthur discovered a letter their mother had tucked away years before. Her neat handwriting seemed to sing, "If fate ever brings Luke home, tell him the piano is waiting, and love never forgets." Arthur showed the letter. Luke cried quietly. "Mom always played Chopin, remember?" Arthur nodded. She said every note was a prayer. That night they returned to the keys. Luke began. Arthur followed, fingers trembling. The music climbed the stairs, crossed the portraits, and lit Grace's face as she stood at the door. Time bowed. What had been pain became melody. What had been absence turned to light. When they finished, Grace whispered, "Maybe this is what took fate so long." Luke smiled at his brother. "I didn't remember the sound, but my heart did." "You're home now," Arthur said. "Nothing will take you away again." Outside, the rain finally stopped. The moon caught in the glass, and for a breath, the boy in the portrait seemed to smile back, as if he too had found peace. Mornings again smelled like coffee in the mansion. 2 cups now. Luke woke early and opened the windows, as if greeting his own story. Arthur watched carefully, guarding the new thread of memory that was knitting itself together. Grace moved through rooms softly, the yellow gloves folded in her pocket, a shelter for the hands when feeling overflowed. On the 5th day, the call Arthur had been waiting for arrived. Henry, his investigator, spoke in a hush, breath heavy from stirring a past that weighed too much. "I found Teresa Viller." The name rolled down the hall like a cold draft. "She lives alone, a few blocks from the old maternity clinic where she worked. And there's more. The wealthy family who paid her to place children died in an accident years later. No trial, no records, just traces." Arthur pulled on his coat and looked at the piano. "We're going." Luke, standing at the window, turned slowly. "Who's Teresa?" "The woman who brought you to the orphanage," Arthur answered, honest. "She can tell us what happened." Luke nodded, a soft fear in his eyes. "I want to go." Teresa's building looked tired. No doorman, an elevator stuck in another decade, echoing hallways of cold tile. The door opened before Arthur could knock. A white-haired woman with watery eyes studied them with unexpected calm. "I knew you'd come. Please, sit." The room smelled of tea and medicine. Old photos lined the shelves, none with children. Arthur didn't dress the truth. "We're here about a boy named Luke Whitmore." She closed her eyes as if accepting a rightful sentence. "I remember him every day." Her voice held no defense. "I was a nurse. We thought we were doing good. Good couples, desperate for a child. Children lost in the system. The money. The money came later. A tidy excuse for a shortcut." Grace leaned forward, voice polite but firm. "You brought a child with forged papers to St. Vincent. Why?" Teresa looked at Luke, studying the man against the boy she once escorted. The couple who took him were tender, not monsters. They meant to give him a home. I followed his first weeks. He cried for his brother and a piano. I told him time fixes everything. He kept saying, "My brother will find me." Arthur flinched. "And when those adoptive parents died?" Teresa breathed in, eyes bright with shame. "I took him to the orphanage myself, used a birth certificate that shouldn't exist. The state was a maze of paper. I believed no one would notice. I thought about confessing so many times, but every door was iron, and I was a coward." Luke's gaze softened, a match striking in his memory. "You used to sing in the car, quietly. I remember mint and alcohol." Teresa gave a weary smile. "I was afraid of silence, so I sang." Arthur set copies of documents and clippings on the table. "What you did was a crime. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for the full truth." Teresa held his stare. "I can give names. There are ledgers, hidden donations, complicit clerks. But I'm old. If I talk, they'll crush me." "Can you take us to the ledgers?" Arthur asked. She walked to an antique dresser, slid open a false panel, and lifted a fabric-wrapped notebook. "I kept what I could reach. I never had the courage to open it again." Arthur's phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Mark, his hard-charging business partner, barked for him to join the final investor meeting. Arthur let the screen go dark. Not today. Teresa opened the notebook. Pages of initials, dates, amounts, crossings. "This could return names to a lot of children," Grace whispered. "And open old wounds for powerful people," Teresa replied. Luke watched, fragile and present, trying to fit his life between these lines. "I used to hope someone would come asking me for permission," Teresa said. "But you came asking for the truth. That matters more." Arthur held her hand for a beat, brief, sincere. "Truth gives people back their names." She turned to Luke. "I don't know how to ask your forgiveness." Luke took time. "I don't remember most of it," he said. "I only know it hurt, and I know I'm here now." The silence that followed wasn't shame, it was grief. On the drive home, the sky rinsed itself with low gold light. Grace fell asleep in the back, cheek to the window, the yellow gloves a small pillow. Luke traced two stick figures on the fogged glass, two brothers, hand in hand. Arthur drove as if carrying an antique vase. The notebook rested by the gear shift, heavy as a heart that finally fits a chest. Home didn't feel enormous when they arrived. It felt safe. Arthur lit only a few lamps, invited them to the music room, and opened the piano as if opening a story. "Tomorrow we go to the DA," he said. "We turn everything in." Luke nodded, eyes caught by the old portrait. "If I don't remember everything," he asked, "what do we do?" Arthur smiled, tired and warm. "We start a new beginning." His phone rang again. Henry this time, voice urgent. "Bad news. Someone leaked what you're stirring up. They're planning to paint Luke as an opportunist after your money, use the amnesia against you. Could be big names, maybe someone close." Mark's face flashed through Arthur's mind like a shadow across a lit hall. Arthur ended the call slowly. The piano, open, seemed to breathe. Luke set his hands above the keys without pressing, warming them over an invisible fire. Grace held her coat closed. Night tasted like a secret. Arthur placed the notebook on the piano, thumb on his leather band. "Tomorrow morning, we decide how to tell this story in a way no one can erase." Outside, wind moved through the gardens and made the portrait's frame hum, as if the boy within gave a small nod. Dawn hadn't finished when Arthur woke. 5:30. The mansion stood in a soft fog. He paused at Luke's portrait. Something in the gaze had changed, as if the child were saying, "Go." In the kitchen, Grace was already lighting the burner. Coffee and warming bread gave the kind of comfort Arthur hadn't felt in years. Luke joined them, sleep still on his face but calm in his eyes. Each day brought a new shard, a tune, the feel of the keys, their mother's smile. He sometimes asked for people long gone. Other times, he simply drew. That morning he carried a fresh canvas, 2 boys at the piano, and a woman smiling behind them. "That's Grace," he said, simple as a lifeline. After breakfast, they walked to the courthouse, breath fogging in the cold. The district attorney listened quietly, studied the notebook, examined the forged papers. "There are names here that will make noise," he said at last. "Let it," Arthur answered. "Silence is what hurt children." Investigations unfolded. Teresa cooperated to the end, revealing a decades-old chain of illegal adoptions masked by bureaucracy and favor. No amount of money could smother the truth. Luke watched from a careful distance, without hatred. "Now Mom's piano can play in peace," he said. When the case closed, Arthur made a choice: turn pain into work. He created the Helen Whitmore Foundation to help locate missing children and support group homes. He asked Grace to run it. She hesitated, embarrassed. "I'm just a housekeeper." "You're the heart that cleared the dust off our story," Arthur said. Luke designed the logo, 2 boys holding hands before a piano. His fingers shook when he presented it, but his eyes were steady. "We were born again, Arthur." On opening night, the hall was full, reporters, photographers, and everyday people moved by a story that had quietly spread. Arthur kept his speech simple, more hush than boom. This began with a promise. An older brother vowed to find the younger. A woman with a steady heart kept the memory alive. Today, we turned pain into hope. Luke hugged him in front of everyone. "Love still found us," he said. "Even after everything." The room stood and clapped. Grace, weeping, looked at the portrait on the wall, the same image that started it all. The boy seemed to smile. That evening they returned to the mansion and the piano. Luke began the Chopin piece that had stitched them together. Arthur followed. Grace sat by the window and let the sound move through her. A gentle wind lifted the curtains and the moon scattered small sparks across the keys. When the last note dissolved, no one spoke. Silence finally was peace. "What comes next?" Arthur asked, looking from his brother to Grace. "Now we care," she answered softly. "For each other. For life." Luke nodded. "Hope needs maintenance too." Before sleep, Arthur passed the portrait again and rested a fingertip on the old frame like a blessing. "We did it, champ." The candle's reflection danced over the painted face, and for an instant, it seemed to wink. Fireflies freckled the garden. Grace closed the windows and watched the small living lights. Something different settled inside her, a calm that didn't come from the world but from within, as if love had made the whole trip back, through time, mistakes, and loss, just to rest at home. The piano stayed open, and as the night air played with the curtains, it seemed to whisper the lesson all 3 had learned. Love isn't lost. It waits to be remembered. This story reminds us that true energy comes from within, the kind that renews us every day. If this story touched your heart, check the pinned comment to discover products that inspire renewal and balance. Leave a like and subscribe to join us in our next story.